Hello, Keith Ford and Steve Ostrem, and after a long absence from Rock Island Auctions, we're back here with some fantastic guns. Now, Steve, anybody in the bolt-action rifle world will instantly know what this is as soon as they see it. This is just give me the lowdown on this.
It's pretty hard to mistake a Weatherby rifle, even at a distance. And this is really a throwback to the 60s and 70s, when this was the acme of American rifle building. You may laugh now, but this was high class back in the day. This really was. This is a Weatherby 300 Magnum built on the Mark V action. Now the 300 Magnum is a story in itself. Roy Weatherby came up with that back in the 1940s. It was basically a blown out H&H 300 case, Holland Holland case, with a double radius shoulder, but it could kick out a 180 grain bullet at 3,200 feet a second, which outpaced everything, including the 300 Winchester that was to come and all that. So that was a big game 30 caliber, the first one really. If you want to count the H&H, that's fine. I mean, it was used plenty for that, but this was the American answer to the 300 H&H. Now he built guns on various actions, Mausers, Enfields, you name it. Commercial actions, he did a lot on the FN Mauser, Seikos. But about 1957, he decided he'd had enough, and he designed, along with a guy named Fred Jennie, the Mark V action that we know today. And that is a 9-lug rotary bolt action. Well, let me show you. It's got 9 lugs, 3 rows of 3. And that's what it took to contain a lot of the cartridges, including the cartridges that were to come, like the 378 Weatherby, the 460 Weatherby. They all work on this action. It has a lot of innovative features. It's got a safety up here on the shroud, very easy to manipulate with a thumb. But when it all comes down to it, Weatherbys were about style. They made a statement about who you were. Not only were you shooting the latest, coolest caliber out there, but you were shooting it in the coolest gun.
Yeah.
Everything on a Weatherby is high polished. The stock is high polished. This thing is as smooth as a new Corvette. And there's a good reason for that, because a lot of his calibers kick a lot. So you don't want any sharp edges. You notice how this angles downward here on the cheek piece? That means the cheek piece gets lower as it goes away from you under heavy recoil. So you don't get that chop in the cheek that a straight one does. So these guns were comfortable to shoot as well. They had a almost nearly vertical pistol grip, which helped with control. So a lot of guys that normally wouldn't be able to handle a big gun could handle a Weatherby because it was smooth and friendly, and it just held for you.
And they also reported up here. A lot of them reported at the front, like this one right here.
Yeah, Weatherby was big into porting back in the day.
And he was doing it before most anybody else was really doing it.
Yeah, actually, some of the first 460s had about 500 holes drilled up there, little tiny holes rather than just a screwed-on brake. Those must have been very labor-intensive to make. But the 300 generally came without a brake. And I had an uncle back in the day that bought a 300. He special ordered it. He'd been reading Weatherby catalogs for years. And when you read a Weatherby catalog, you were reading about Roy Rogers, John Wayne, the Shah of Iran, all these dignitaries that used Weatherby rifles. Because Roy Weatherby was out there near Hollywood, and he knew how to sell stuff. And that's why the gun looks like it does.
Oh yeah, this screams 1950s California.
It does.
I mean, it's just everything that you would imagine going on in the 50s, high class, flashy, the engraving, everything. Yeah, this is Roy Weatherby exemplified right here.
And you'll notice a lot of the rifles at this era have Buehler mounts on them, Buehler scope rings and mounts. That's because Roy and Mr. Buehler, Maynard Buehler, were good friends. They were into vintage cars and things like that, but guns as well. And Buehler mounts were often as not found on top of a Weatherby. So if you were going big game hunting back in the day, Africa, Alaska, whatever, and you were a rich guy, you would want a Weatherby. I know it looks a little gaudy, but in the 60s, nothing was too gaudy.
But this was, I mean, even though it's gaudy, the strength of the action is what
Yeah, you can't fault the action.
No, you can't fault
Not
it.
at all.
I think Roy had a couple catastrophic failures with some rifles, and he pretty much like, okay, I'm done. We're going to do something different. But yeah, this is Weatherby from top to bottom. Weatherby scope. I mean, the Bueller rings all highly engraved. I mean, the Weatherby, yeah, this was the top of the line for when it was.
Yeah, and now some of the Mark V actions were made by J.P. Sauer in Germany, but when the cost got to be too much, he took it over to Japan and had Howa build them, and they were great actions. Now the Weatherbys are American made. Since the 90s, they've shifted over to American production. So they're still around. You can still buy a Mark V.
Yep, made out in Wyoming.
Yeah.
They pulled up from California and left a couple of years ago.
And they're still a great gun. And the Weatherby calibers, there's still a lot of good ones in there. Roy's favorite was the 257 Weatherby, and if you look at its performance, you'll see why.
Yep, super great gun.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. That is the Weatherby Mark V and all of its grand opulence right here. So I know that there's plenty of folks out there that have used these over the years. Be sure and drop us a line, and while you're at it, smash that like and subscribe button. And also, we'd like to thank Rock Island for letting us come out and go through all their guns again. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in again whenever we bring another gun from the vault.